I got to hit you with a disclaimer. This is not, none of this information is like designed to help anybody. It's just my view of kind of where things happened.
Heavy D, known for his larger-than-life personality, infectious laugh, and candid honesty, has never been one to hold back. Fans of Diesel Brothers know him for his bold opinions, his fearless commentary, and his ability to speak the truth, no matter how uncomfortable. And now, years later, he's finally breaking his silence on something that's been simmering behind the cameras all along: the cast members he actually hated the most. For viewers, the show looks like a fun, chaotic, and tightly knit crew, with pranks, camaraderie, and epic car restorations. But insiders have whispered for years that not every relationship on set was as smooth as it appeared. Tensions simmered, rivalries brewed, and frustration sometimes boiled over, all hidden behind cameras and forced smiles for the audience. Heavy D had a front row seat to it all. He saw personalities clash, egos flare, and professional boundaries tested. And he watched as some cast members thrived while others made life on set unnecessarily difficult. The kind of tension that didn't make it into the episodes, the behind-the-scenes drama. The moments that almost no one outside the crew knew about, those are the stories Heavy D is finally ready to tell. The revelations aren't just shocking, they're eye-opening. They challenge everything fans assumed about the show, the friendships, and the dynamics that made Diesel Brothers so popular. Heavy D's confession promises to expose the raw truth: who he couldn't stand working with, why, and the incidents that pushed him to his breaking point. This is the side of Diesel Brothers you've never seen before: the unfiltered, brutally honest reality of what life on set was really like. Heavy D has always been a man of extremes: energetic, outspoken, and unafraid to speak his mind. Those qualities made him a fan favorite on Diesel Brothers. But they also meant he noticed things about his fellow cast members that others might have ignored. On camera, the show is fast-paced, chaotic, and full of humor, but behind the cameras, tensions ran higher than most viewers ever realized. Heavy D's recent confessions revealed just how intense those dynamics could get. From the very beginning, Heavy D felt pressure to prove himself. While some cast members had years of experience restoring cars or dealing with high-profile clients, Heavy D was determined to show that he belonged not just as comic relief or support, but as a legitimate force on the team. That ambition, paired with his blunt personality, naturally put him at odds with certain individuals who were more sensitive to criticism, slower to adapt, or protective of their own roles. He admits that the first person he had real issues with was someone who consistently undermined his input. On camera, it looked like casual teasing or friendly disagreement. Off camera, however, Heavy D says it often felt deliberate, almost petty. "It was like they wanted to make me look bad in front of everyone," he recalled. "I don't mind jokes, but this went beyond that. It got personal." Those small tensions escalated over time, creating an undercurrent of frustration that could shift the mood of the entire workshop. Another source of conflict, Heavy D revealed, was the lack of accountability. Some cast members were repeatedly careless with projects, delayed critical deadlines, or disregarded instructions from management. On set, this made filming chaotic and forced Heavy D and others to pick up the slack. "I felt like I was carrying more than my share," he said. "And it wasn't because I wanted to, was because someone had to get the job done right." Perhaps most frustrating for him were the cast members who played favorites or created cliques. Heavy D was candid in saying that workplace politics on Diesel Brothers were surprisingly intense. He witnessed moments when decisions weren't made based on merit or skill, but on relationships or personal biases. That tension, he admits, contributed heavily to his growing resentment toward certain colleagues. Despite the conflicts, Heavy D always maintained professionalism in front of the camera. Fans watching episodes never saw the private frustrations, the sighs, or the quiet muttering behind closed doors. Yet for Heavy D, these moments shaped his experience on the show more than any on-camera scene ever could. He emphasizes that his recent confession isn't about drama for attention, it's about setting the record straight and giving fans a full picture of what life on set was truly like. By the end of the first few seasons, Heavy D says he had compiled a mental list of cast members who tested his patience repeatedly. Some were careless, some egotistical, some manipulative, and some simply didn't understand the level of commitment he expected. And while he kept much of this frustration private at the time, years later, he's finally ready to name names, explain the incidents, and reveal the real reasons behind the tensions. For Heavy D, this confession is about honesty. It's about giving fans an unfiltered glimpse into what really happened when the cameras weren't rolling, and why some relationships on Diesel Brothers were far more complicated than anyone imagined. As filming continued, Heavy D's frustrations with certain cast members only grew more pronounced. While he loved the work, the long hours, and the adrenaline of the job, he couldn't ignore the repeated patterns that disrupted both production and his peace of mind. According to him, some colleagues consistently challenged his authority or undermined his efforts, often under the guise of friendly competition. On camera, it looked like playful banter or harmless teasing, but off camera, it was a constant source of stress. One recurring issue, Heavy D explained, was a lack of respect for team responsibilities. Certain cast members would ignore critical safety protocols, mishandle expensive equipment, or arrive unprepared for shoots. This forced others, including Heavy D, to step in repeatedly to prevent delays or mistakes. Over time, this created resentment. "I wasn't there to babysit anyone," he admitted. "I came to do my job, and I expected everyone to do theirs." That's not too much to ask. Another tension point was ego. Heavy D recalled moments when some cast members acted as though their opinions or ideas were superior, dismissing suggestions from others even when those suggestions were more practical or safer. On a high-pressure set like Diesel Brothers, these clashes could escalate quickly. Heavy D often found himself in the uncomfortable position of mediating disputes while trying to maintain his own focus. It wasn't about being difficult, he said. It was about getting things done the right way. He also noted how personalities clashed when cameras weren't rolling. Certain individuals enjoyed stirring drama, creating alliances, or attempting to manipulate situations for personal advantage. Heavy D observed this firsthand and found it exhausting. Over time, he realized that the energy some people brought to the set was less about teamwork and more about self-interest, which clashed with his own straightforward, honest approach. Interestingly, Heavy D stressed that his frustrations were never personal at first. They were professional. He respected talent and knew everyone had strengths. But repeated lapses, careless mistakes, and manipulative behaviors gradually pushed him to the edge. What started as irritation became genuine dislike for the way certain cast members operated, especially when their behavior consistently hindered productivity or created unnecessary tension on set. Despite the challenges, Heavy D always maintained professionalism when filming. He never let the audience see the friction, never allowed his frustrations to disrupt the show, and often absorbed the stress privately. "You have to separate the camera from reality," he explained. "The show has to run smoothly, and the viewers should only see entertainment, not the chaos behind the scenes." Heavy D also noted that these tensions affected morale on set. When certain cast members acted out or ignored responsibilities, it created an environment where others were forced to work harder, cover mistakes, or constantly navigate personality clashes. The ripple effect was exhausting, and it's why, years later, he openly admits some relationships on the crew were toxic in ways the audience could never imagine. Finally, he emphasized that his confessions are not just for drama, they're a reality check. Behind every successful TV show, there are complex personalities, conflicting priorities, and moments of genuine frustration. Heavy D's candid account gives fans an unprecedented glimpse into what it really took to make Diesel Brothers happen, and why some cast members ended up on his most difficult list as filming progressed through multiple seasons. Heavy D's feelings toward certain cast members became increasingly clear. The frustrations he experienced were not fleeting, they were the result of repeated patterns, ongoing behavior, and a sense that some individuals were not committed to the work the way he was. He recalls that early on he tried to give the benefit of the doubt, assuming that minor lapses or missteps were simply accidents or misunderstandings. But over time, the same issues kept resurfacing, leaving him no choice but to develop a stronger opinion about who he could truly rely on and who he could not. One major source of tension, according to Heavy D, was the recurring lack of accountability. He describes moments where critical tasks were neglected, deadlines ignored, or instructions overlooked, forcing him or others to pick up the slack. On a high-pressure set like Diesel Brothers, where timelines and budgets were strict, these behaviors were not minor, they had real consequences. You can only cover for someone so many times before it becomes disrespectful, he said, and that's when frustration turns into resentment. Another factor was the clash of personalities. Heavy D is naturally outspoken and bold, whereas some cast members thrived on subtle manipulation, avoidance, or passive aggressiveness. Their approaches often collided, creating ongoing friction. It wasn't about me being difficult, Heavy D explained. It was about them refusing to meet expectations, and then acting surprised when anyone called it out. This disconnect, he says, contributed to a growing list of cast members he simply could not work with comfortably. Interestingly, Heavy D emphasizes that talent alone did not excuse bad behavior. Some of the most skilled members of the crew still earned his ire if they failed to respect the team or the process. He recalls incidents where errors or poor decisions could have jeopardized a shoot, only to be met with excuses or deflection instead of ownership. These repeated patterns, he admits, are what ultimately landed certain individuals at the top of his least favorite list. Yet, it wasn't all negative. Heavy D made it clear that he respected those who were reliable, respectful, and committed to the work. He often sought out collaboration with those teammates, valuing their professionalism and skill. But the contrast between dependable cast members and those who caused friction only made the latter stand out even more. When someone continually disrupts progress, it doesn't matter if they're talented, Heavy D said. It becomes impossible to overlook. Perhaps most revealing is how Heavy D handled these challenges personally. Instead of confronting every issue aggressively, he chose to internalize much of his frustration, focusing on delivering his own best work and maintaining professionalism on camera. He wanted the show to succeed, not to be dragged down by conflicts. But the cumulative stress left him with strong opinions that he rarely shared publicly until now. By openly discussing these tensions years later, Heavy D is shedding light on the reality of working in high-pressure environments like Diesel Brothers. It's a candid acknowledgement that behind every successful reality show, there are personalities that clash, egos that collide, and moments where frustration quietly builds until it can no longer be contained. Heavy D's confessions reveal the truth about who he disliked the most, why, and how those dynamics shaped both the show and his own experience on set by the later seasons of Diesel Brothers. Heavy D's perspective on his castmates had fully solidified. The frustrations he endured during the early years had become clearer in hindsight, and he was finally ready to speak openly about the people who had made life on set most difficult. According to him, these were not the individuals who lacked talent or skill. They were the ones who repeatedly disregarded teamwork, created unnecessary drama, or made professionalism an afterthought. Heavy D recalled incidents where delays, Miscommunication or carelessness forced others to compensate, sometimes under tight filming schedules. While the cast appeared seamless on camera, behind the scenes, it was a very different story. He explained that it wasn't about minor mistakes. It was about recurring patterns that demonstrated a lack of respect for the team and the work itself. One mistake can be forgiven, he said. But when it happens over and over, it's no longer an accident, it's a choice. Personality clashes also played a role. Heavy D's direct, outspoken approach was natural for him, but it often collided with colleagues who preferred to avoid confrontation, manipulate situations, or act defensively. These differences created a strain that affected morale and made collaboration more challenging than necessary. The energy required to navigate these conflicts, combined with the demands of filming, left him increasingly frustrated. He admitted that these experiences contributed heavily to the list of cast members he hated the most, though he clarified that hate was shorthand for enduring repeated, stressful behavior rather than personal animosity. Despite these challenges, Heavy D emphasized that he remained committed to professionalism. He never let conflicts disrupt filming or affect the final product. On camera, the show maintained its humor, energy, and camaraderie, and viewers were none the wiser about the friction simmering off-screen. But behind the scenes, the dynamics shaped his experience, his relationships with others, and his perception of the show as a workplace. Interestingly, Heavy D also reflected on what he learned from these difficult relationships. He credited the experience with sharpening his patience, strengthening his boundaries, and teaching him how to navigate high-pressure environments with composure. He recognized that not everyone would meet his standards, and that learning to adapt while protecting his own professionalism was a crucial skill. By speaking openly now, years after the fact, Heavy D is giving fans an unfiltered look at the realities of reality television. His confession illuminates how tension, frustration, and personality clashes are an inevitable part of any high-stakes production, even one that appears effortless on screen. It also underscores an important lesson behind every successful show. There are challenges, compromises, and moments of struggle that audiences rarely see. Ultimately, Heavy D's revelations do more than list grievances. They provide context for what it takes to maintain quality, cohesion, and performance under pressure. The cast members he hated were part of the equation, shaping not only the work, but also his personal growth. And while these tensions made filming more difficult, they also contributed to the show's authenticity, the depth of relationships, and the lasting stories that fans continue to enjoy today. Heavy D's candor shows that success in television isn't just about talent or charisma, it's about navigating personalities, managing expectations, and sometimes enduring people you'd rather avoid, and in sharing the truth about the cast members who challenged him most. He gives fans a rare glimpse into the human side of reality television, the drama, the frustration, and the unspoken truths that made Diesel Brothers both compelling and complicated.